You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. As always, I'm your host, Larry Elise. On today's episode, we continue our series, Central City Rewatch, with our review of the 8th episode of The Flash, titled Flash vs. Arrow. Before we do that, give me your thoughts on the season so far. What are your favorite moments from the first 7 episodes? And let me know in the comments section below if there's any other TV shows you want me to review, episode by episode. And with that, let's dive into today's episode. The 8th episode of The Flash, Season 1, titled Flash vs. Arrow, is a landmark chapter in the broader Arrowverse canon, offering a fascinating intersection of genre storytelling, superhero mythology, and character-driven drama. Premiering in December 2014, this episode is not only notable for its action-packed sequences, but also for what it reveals about Barry Allen's evolving identity as the Flash, and how his heroism is challenged when juxtaposed with the darker, hardened persona of Oliver Queen, the Arrow. As the first major crossover between the Flash and Arrow, this episode represents a microcosm of the contrasting philosophies between two of the CW's flagship characters. The script, directed by Glenn Winter and penned by Ben... apologies, I'm not even going to try to pronounce their last names. They masterfully balance thematic tension with narrative propulsion, resulting in a story that transcends the typical superhero fare. So, this episode offers a comprehensive exploration of Episode 7, combining narrative analysis, character development, and genre theory to assess its significance within the season and the Arrowverse. Drawing from concepts in media studies and narratology, we position Flash vs. Arrow as more than just a superhero team-up. It is an ideologically rich episode that examines fear, control, friendship, and the psychological complexities of power. In tracing the arc of this episode, we uncover its narrative value, not only in terms of serialized storytelling, but also in its ability to contribute meaningfully to the mythopoeic legacy of its titular characters. Flash vs. Arrow adheres to a traditional 3-act structure, but does so with a pace that is both kinetic and emotionally deliberate. The episode opens with a metahuman threat, Roy G. Bigelow, known in the comics as Prism or Rainbow Raider, who possessed the ability to manipulate others' emotions, including rage, through neurochemical stimulation. This threat, while surface level, functions more as a narrative device to catalyze inner conflict within Barry Allen and to foreground the central thematic dilemma. Emotional volatility is both a liability and a window into truth. From the moment Oliver Queen and his team arrive in Central City, the script smartly oscillates between humorous culture clash and ideological confrontation. When Barry is impulsive, optimistic, and emotionally transparent, Oliver is methodical, emotionally repressed, and seasoned by trauma. Their philosophical divergence creates natural tension, one that is explored through parallel plot threads, the external villain, and the internal struggle within Barry as his emotions spiral out of control. Pacing is essential to the episode's success. Rather than allow the crossover premise to bloat the narrative, the writers maintain focus by centering everything around Barry's psychological state. The fight sequence between Flash and Arrow occurs late in the second act and serves as a literal and metaphorical clash of values. Importantly, the fight is not about victory, but revelation. Barry's speed is not enough when anger clouds his judgment, a symbolic message about the costs of unchecked emotion. The final act ties these threads together with restraint. Instead of ending on a climatic defeat of the villain, the real closure is achieved through reflection, Barry understanding the limits of his power, and Oliver acknowledging his own blind spots. The ending is less about triumph and more about growth, which marks the episode as narratively mature. Today's episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus, the streaming service with something for everyone. When it comes to streaming, there's a lot out there, but few platforms deliver like Paramount Plus. Whether you're into gripping dramas, laugh-out-loud comedies, true crime documentaries, or blockbuster films, Paramount Plus has you covered. You can stream everything from hit series like Criminal Minds, NCIS, and Tulsa King, to massive movie franchises like Mission Impossible, Transformers, and Top Gun. Plus, there's a constantly growing library of Paramount Plus originals that keep you coming back for more, including 1923 Special Ops Lioness. And it's not just shows and movies, you also get live sports, including the NFL on CBS, college football, the UEFA Champions League matches, and you can even stream your local CBS station live for breaking news and special events. Here's the best part. Right now, you can try Paramount Plus free for 1 week. Yep, a full week of unlimited streaming completely free. Just go to ParamountPlus.com or click the link in the description to start your free 1 week trial today. So if you're looking for your next binge, or you just want a platform that gives you everything, from heart-pounding action to award-winning series, make it Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, where entertainment lives. And now, let's get back to our episode. The heart of Flash vs. Arrow lies in its character interplay. While the premise may be constructed around spectacle, the emotional resonance emerges from how these characters reflect and refract one another's values. Barry and Oliver are foils in the literary sense. Barry's youth and idealism stand in stark contrast to Oliver's grim pragmatism. The dichotomy is played not only for conflict, but for mutual development. Barry begins the episode as someone eager to impress and learn from Oliver, almost idolizing him. However, as tensions rise and Barry falls under the influence of the Rainbow Raider, the facade of control crumbles. Underneath his boyish optimism lies a deep well of insecurity and latent anger, qualities Oliver has long since buried beneath layers of control. The moment when Barry, enraged, turns on Oliver in the city square is not simply about mind control. It is a narrative strategy to force buried traits to the surface. Iris West's role is also significant, not merely as a love interest, but as a commentator on Barry's transformation. Her growing discomfort with the Flash's volatility acts as a societal mirror. How do we perceive heroes when they lose emotional restraint? Similarly, Felicity Smoke, visiting from Starling City, acts as a bridge between the two worlds. Her presence injecting levity, while also grounding Oliver emotionally. Her chemistry with Barry is playful and kind, but it is her dialogue with Oliver that reveals the stake of their mentorship dynamic. Perhaps most compelling is the subtle mentorship theme. Oliver is reluctant to take on a guiding role, but by the episode's end, he imparts lessons not through didacticism, but through confrontation. His closing advice to Barry: "You can inspire people in a way I never could. Watching you, I realize there's more than one way to be a hero," is both an admission and a benediction. It reframes their conflict not as a rivalry, but as part of a dialectic, light and dark, emotion and control, coexisting rather than canceling each other out. Beyond character dynamics, Flash vs. Arrow is rich with ideological inquiry. At its core, the episode grapples with the tension between emotion and discipline. Public identity and private pain. This tension is mirrored in its central antagonist. Roy's power does not simply make people angry, it exposes their emotional truth, stripping away the masks they wear to function in society. In this sense, Bigelow functions allegorically, not merely as a villain of the week, but as a tool of narrative excavation. The emotional volatility Barry experiences is framed not as aberration, but as revelation. Underneath his cheery optimism lies grief, fear, and frustration, emotions stemming from his mother's murder, his father's incarceration, and his own overwhelming sense of responsibility. Oliver's darker persona, meanwhile, is shown as a product of long-term emotional suppression, born from trauma but calcified into stoicism. The episode does not favor one mode over the other, rather it interrogates the cost of both. Furthermore, the episode offers a subtle critique of the superhero genre's traditional binaries. Instead of good versus evil or light versus dark, we see ambiguity. The Flash is both a symbol of hope and a vessel for chaos when untempered. The Arrow is both a protector and a vigilante with morally gray methods. This complexity aligns with postmodern interpretations of heroism, where internal conflict and societal context matter more than costume or power. The Arrow's final line about inspiration is key here. It reveals a self-awareness of genre expectations. Oliver understands that Barry represents something purer, more aspirational, but even purity requires guidance. The episode thus becomes a parable not only about control, but about community, how heroes need one another to stay grounded, and how mentorship must be reciprocal. In terms of broader Arrowverse continuity, this episode seeds the possibility of collaborative heroism without homogenizing the identities of its protagonists. It remains committed to diversity, not just in powers, but in worldviews. That is perhaps its most progressive element, the idea that difference, when acknowledged and respected, leads to stronger alliances. Director Glenn Winter brings a deft visual hand to this episode, particularly in rendering the contrasting aesthetics of the two shows. The Flash, typically brighter and more chromatic, is visually altered by the arrival of the Arrow. Shadows are deeper, lighting more diffused, and the camera work shifts from sleek, steady cams to handheld intensity during confrontations. The fight choreography is a standout. The climatic battle between Barry and Oliver is filmed with a kinetic dynamism that mirrors their personalities. Barry's movements are fast, erratic, sometimes showy. Oliver's are compact, brutal, and strategic. The choreography respects each character's skill set while also building tension. Notably, the fight's resolution is anticlimactic in a narrative sense, but visually it crescendos, a reminder that spectacle and substance can coincide without undermining each other. Color plays a significant role. Biblo's power manifests in red, which not only triggers rage, but evokes both danger and urgency. The city itself becomes an emotional barometer, as lighting subtly shifts during scenes of heightened emotion. This is a small but effective touch that underscores the episode's psychological focus. Editing is also precise. Cross-cutting between Team Arrow and Team Flash during investigations builds narrative symmetry. Each team functions with its own rhythm. The Flash's team is informal and emotionally expressive, while Arrow's team is terse and calculated. These differences are mirrored in the editing style, with quicker cuts for Flash scenes and longer, tenser takes for Arrows. The final scene between Barry and Oliver, set on a rooftop at dusk, encapsulates the visual's motif of duality. The city skyline behind them is both beautiful and imposing, symbolic of the burdens and privileges of heroism. The lighting is soft but cool, indicating the mutual respect that has emerged from their conflict. Winter's direction ensures that the episode is not just narratively rich, but visually coherent, with every frame reinforcing its themes. One of the defining strengths of this episode is its intertextual layering within the superhero television genre. As a crossover, the episode is self-consciously aware of its placement, not only within the Arrowverse, but also with a broader lineage of superhero narratives. By having two protagonists from separate shows confront each other physically and ideologically, the episode draws on a tradition that extends back to comic book team-ups and rivalries. Most notably, Superman vs. Batman, Marvel's Civil War arc involving Iron Man and Captain America. The narrative utilizes the tradition to engage with questions of genre hybridity. The Flash is structured more like a science fiction adventure serial, while Arrow leans towards the crime noir genre with urban grit and moral ambiguity. Bringing these shows together creates a hybrid form that is both referential and innovative. The dialogue often references past events from both series, creating intertextual nodes that rewards viewers familiar with the overarching narratives while remaining accessible to new audiences. Furthermore, the crossover trope itself has cultural currency. It reflects a larger trend in transmedia storytelling, where separate story worlds intersect to create a shared universe. Scholar Henry Jenkins defines this as convergence culture, where media texts operate in dialogue with one another across platforms. Flash vs. Arrow exemplifies this principle, not only in terms of production, but thematically. It shows that no hero operates in a vacuum, and that meaning is constructed through relationships, context, and conflict. This meta-awareness positions the episode not merely as a plot device or rating strategy, but as a commentary on the evolution of serialized storytelling. It leverages genre conventions to explore identity and heroism, while simultaneously expanding the formal possibilities of television narrative. The result is a work that is both entertaining and structurally ambitious, aware of its genre, while interrogating its boundaries. Flash vs. Arrow thrives not only through its thematic and structural coherence, but through a series of powerful, memorable moments that punctuate the episode with emotional and narrative impact. These moments serve as anchor points, crystallizing the tension and insights that the episode cultivates across its runtime. So these are some of the most striking and narratively consequential moments from the episode. Right off the bat, we're starting with the Flash vs. Arrow showdown. Undoubtedly the most anticipated and iconic moment of the episode is the actual confrontation between Barry Allen and Oliver Queen. Set against the urban backdrop of Central City, the sequence is visually dynamic and emotionally charged. Triggered by Roy Bivelow's rage-inducing influence, Barry becomes increasingly aggressive, culminating in a full-on physical clash with the Arrow. This scene works on multiple levels as a showcase of stunt choreography, as a test of each character's strengths, and as a symbolic confrontation between idealism and pragmatism. Barry's speed makes him nearly unbeatable, but Oliver's tactical thinkings even the odds. The choreography cleverly contrasts their fighting styles. Barry's quick, flashy strikes against Oliver's grounded, brutal counters. The moment is not about victory, but realization. Barry's emotional instability is a liability, and Oliver's control is not infallible. It's an embodiment of the episode's core dialect. Number 2, Barry's rage outburst in the police station. One of the most disturbing and character-revealing moments occur when Barry, under Bivelow's influence, lashes out at Joe West and the CCPD. His explosive anger is jarring because it deviates so sharply from his usual demeanor. What makes the scene so effective is the way it exposes buried layers of resentment and frustration. Feelings Barry normally represses beneath his hopeful exterior. This moment serves not just to show the power of the villain, but to deepen Barry's psychological profile. The fury he unleashes is not foreign to him. It is part of his emotional landscape. The writing resists the temptation to frame it purely as mind control, instead presenting it as a surfacing of unprocessed trauma and stress. It's a moment that complicates Barry's heroism in ways that reverberate across the rest of the season. Number 3, the rooftop conversation between Barry and Oliver. After the chaos subsides, Barry and Oliver share a quiet, contemplative scene on a rooftop at dusk. Here they acknowledge the strengths and weaknesses in one another and express mutual respect. It is a moment of reconciliation and synthesis, dialectical closure that completes the arc of the episode. Oliver tells Barry, "You can inspire people in a way I never could," which stands as both compliment and confession. This moment is beautifully understated, avoiding melodrama while affirming growth. For Barry, it's an endorsement. For Oliver, it's an admission that heroism isn't one size fits all. The cityscape backdrop and soft lighting visually reinforce the thematic blend of light and shadow, hope and realism. Number 4, Felicity's comic relief and emotional bridge. Felicity Smoke's arrival offers some of the episode's most delightful interactions, particularly her chemistry with both Barry and Oliver. She acts as a narrative bridge between the two worlds. Her lightheartedness contrasts Oliver's grimness and complements Barry's exuberance. A particularly fun moment occurs when she reacts to Barry's super speed striptease in the lab, quipping about him being naked 3 seconds ago. It's a brief beat, but it humanizes the episode and reminds viewers that levity has a place, even in serious thematic explorations. These moments demonstrate why Flash vs. Arrow is more than the sum of its parts. Each beat contributes to a larger emotional and ideological rhythm, blending action with introspection and offering character moments that resonate long after the episode ends. Upon release, Flash vs. Arrow was met with critical acclaim and strong audience reception, earning some of the season's highest viewership numbers. Critics praised the episode for its tonal balance, narrative cohesion, and dynamic character interactions. Beyond the numbers, however, the episode's cultural impact lies in its success of blending two narrative worlds without compromising their individual identities. It served as proof of concept that a shared universe on television could function with complexity and emotional depth, paving the way for future crossovers like Crisis on Earth X and Crisis on Infinite Earths. From a fan perspective, the episode was celebrated not only for its action, but for its character-driven storytelling. Online forums, fan videos, social media discussions illuminated how viewers were engaging with all the ideological questions raised. Was Barry's optimism sustainable in the long term? Was Oliver's stoicism a strength or a shield? These debates reflect the episode's success in provoking discourse beyond its runtime. Academically, the episode offers a rich site for analysis in terms of audience reception theory. Stuart Hall's encoding/decoding model helps frame how different viewers interpret the moral messages presented. While some may read the episode as affirming Barry's hopeful vision, others might privilege Oliver's emphasis on caution and tactical control. The polysemic nature of the episode, the multiple meanings it enables, enhances its cultural longevity. Moreover, the success of the episode influenced the CW's programming strategy, leading to the formalization of the Arrowverse as a multimedia franchise. Spin-offs like Legends of Tomorrow and events such as Elseworlds can trace their lineage to this initial experiment in crossover storytelling. It normalized collaboration not only between heroes, but between showrunners, writer rooms, and audiences. Flash vs. Arrow thus transcends its runtime to become a cultural moment, an inflection point in serialized TV that combined entertainment with thematic weight. Its legacy is not merely in what it achieved narratively, but in how it reshaped expectations for genre storytelling on the small screen. Flash vs. Arrow is more than a mid-season crossover. It is a masterclass in character study, thematic explorations, and genre innovation. By pairing Barry Allen with Oliver Queen, the episode exposes the fault lines in their respective ideologies, not to destabilize them, but to deepen them. It uses conflict not as spectacle alone, but as a mechanism of growth and mutual recognition. The episode's narrative is tightly constructed, its visual style coherent, and its character development meaningful. What emerges is not a simplistic battle of good versus evil, or gritty, but a nuanced meditation on what it means to be heroic in a fractured world. Barry learns that speed without control is chaos, while Oliver is reminded that control without hope is paralysis. Together, they do not simply balance each other, they evolve. This evolution is critical not just for their individual arcs, but for the broader narrative universe they inhabit. The episode exemplifies what modern superhero television can achieve when it leans into complexity rather than formula. Through its use of allegory, intertextuality, and psychological realism, this episode engages with contemporary questions about identity, leadership, and moral ambiguity. In an era where genre television often vacillates between cynicism and idealism, this episode strikes a rare equilibrium. It affirms that heroism is not a fixed tribute, but a constantly negotiated process, one that must contend with fear, failure, and the need for connection. As such, Flash vs. Arrow stands not only as a high point of the Flash Season 1, but as a testament to the potential of serialized storytelling to entertain, challenge, and inspire. And that is our review of Episode 8 of The Flash, Flash vs. Arrow. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments section below. And if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.